Hello everybody, my name is Susanna Graeffe and I'm working for Huhtamaki food service in Finland. I have several years of experience working with the French people, especially from the time that I was working for Huhtamaki molded fiber and visiting regularly our factory in La Rochelle. Actually one of the most beautiful locations what we have for any of our factories. I was asked to be telling to you about my experiences and views about the differences between the cultures of the French people and the Finnish people, and also I'm very happy to do so. But I just want to give you one little word of caution in the today's communication world. Anything that I'm telling to you is only my own views and my own experiences. These are definitively not any facts. And I also hope that none of you is getting offended about what I'm saying. It's not meant to be like that. Also, I need to be a little bit careful because my big chief, the CEO of Huhtamaki nowadays, is a Frenchman. And mentioning him, it actually brings me to the first difference what we are having. When he joined the company, he was telling to us that we should be calling him with his first name, Charles. And that I believe is something quite unusual in the French company culture, whereas in Scandinavia it's quite common. We are, especially I think whole Scandinavia is quite much more to this first name using, but that's especially strong in Sweden, where people might even feel themselves insulted if they are not called with the first name, but with the last one. Maybe they want to feel more familiar with each other's. And maybe surprisingly, but our Charles now then has been working in the past for Tetra Pak, a big Swedish company, so he probably has been picking up this behavior from there. There is also, I think this is also probably a reflection of the hierarchies. I think that the French companies are more hierarchy bound than the Scandinavian or the Finnish ones. We are quite flat, so it's quite easy to move from one level to another and talk with different peoples, whereas I think that you are probably more structured in your approach. Then there is something, the clear difference between the people is, I think, about the politeness. I think French people are very polite. When you come in the morning to the office, I have understood that everybody is shaking the hands and even giving the kisses to each others. Whereas in Finland, when you come in the morning to the office, you are sort of mumbling the good morning to the closest by colleagues, and that's about it. Sometimes I think that the difference might even depend on the language. I think language is playing an important role over here. I think in France, you have quite a lot of, or in French language, you have quite a lot of polite phrases already built into the language, whereas the Finnish language is quite rough and quite strict and blunt. So it's different kind of structure. There is also clear difference in the small talk habits. French people are very small talkative. I think immediately when you see each other, you start to talk, and you talk with your hands and you talk with your gestures, you talk with your mimics. Finnish person can very easily be quiet for a longer time, and even funnily so, a Finnish person can be quiet without being annoyed about that. I think a typical example of this could be in a lift. If you go into the lift with strangers, a Finnish person can easily be the whole trip without saying anything, and the French person will for sure start to talk with the neighbor quite quickly. Background to this might be lay in the socio-geographic history, I would say so. We are 5 million people, you are more than 65 million people. The land area in Finland is sort of half of the size in France. So I think in France you just need to be naturally more social because you have more people around you. There is also, I remember at school we were taught at the time that the villages in Europe are built up so that the houses are together and that forms a village against the enemy, and the fields are outside the villages. If you look at the Finnish countryside, you will see house and a field. So people don't get so close to each other, so it's a long distance even to your closest by neighbor. There is also one nice example I remember sometime when we were visiting a French restaurant. When you come in there, the first group is seated already. The next ones to come in will be seated next to the previous one, so that they start to already form a kind of a community over there. When you come in Finland to the restaurant, the first group is in left side corner and the new group is going to be in the right side corner, as far from each other as possible. Then there is also a clear difference between the genders. I think in France, really the females are very female, both in the lookings and in behavior. And I would also say that the men are kind of everyday heroes, what I would call that. Thinking about the women's part and actually everybody's part, of course the climate is making a big difference over here. So we have 9 months of the year, it's a lot of snow, it's really cold and it's really dark. So the first thing of course is that you are having functional clothing rather than beautiful clothing. Not to say that you couldn't have both of them, but I think that it's more challenging to have it the same way. Then going forward, still to the habits as well, I think in Finland a woman would never expect a man to carry her bag or to open the door to the shop for example. And many times when people go like a couples, maybe not couples but friends to the restaurant, it's always so that everybody is paying their own bill. So I think those are quite clear differences. In Finland also, nowadays many fathers are taking the paternity leave several weeks so that they can stay with their children. Then still saying about this men's role and also the everyday heroes, I still think that the Finnish men also are heroes, but the hero-ness is popping up only when there is really like a kind of a serious situation. If I'm drowning or the house is burning, I'm sure that he will rescue me. This also I think is partly the equality between the men and the women is coming also partly from the language, or it's visible in the language. You are having il and el for like two different words for her, whereas in Finland we only have like one word hän, and that is covering both the man and the woman, so it's kind of a it or set in France. And then as a curiosity I also wanted to add over here, you have of course your very famous, world famous slogan of Liberté, Fraternité and Égalité from 1789, from the revolution. At the time that Finland was still sort of people were hanging from the trees, but coming then further to the 1900s, so 1906 in Finland the women were getting the voting right as the first nation in Europe. So we have been catching up. Then talking about France, of course, we cannot forget about talking about food. It's very central. I think Finland has been improving a lot recently. The food you get much better food in the restaurants nowadays than what you used to get. And I think that our food it's qualitatively very good. We have fresh ingredients from our close by nature, but it's undoubted that the taste of the food in France is much better. It's constantly much better. So wherever you go in France, I think you always get good food. And I also think that the role of eating and food is different in these countries. So in France, you always have the 3 courses. You take the time, you have the 3 courses you are eating. It's a social happening. Whereas in Finland, it's still more considered as being the little break to fuel yourself up so that you can keep on going the rest of the day. So there is a difference definitively in this attitude, and I always enjoy it a lot when I come to La Rochelle and we have this little eatery next door where the lady of the house is preparing the 3 courses, and there is always also at least 2 choices per day of really delicious, simple, delicious food, and that's available sort of every single day. So I really appreciate and I think that's so French. Further then to the business life, and there is the definition of time, which I think is quite different. In Finland, it's considered very unpolite if you're coming like 5 minutes too late to the meeting, whereas I think in France, 15 minutes hassle in the beginning is quite normal. People are drinking coffee, they are socializing, and I think that's also very important in France, the socializing part. So it's not a problem to anybody. In Finland, you would be really concentrated on the subject and the topics during the meeting. Very little small talk. That's saved then for the after the meeting or in the evening with your friends. And really the purpose of the meeting is to get the actions in place, and then we start executing. So it's quite sort of short and stick to the point. And then the same, I think, is a little bit valid also for the kind of what I call for precision habits. So we are quite precise in Finland. If you talk about the agreements, or if you talk about rules, or if you talk about deadlines, for a Finn, rule is a rule. So if there is a rule, then we also follow it. And there, nobody is sort of looking for to divert from that. Also, if you make a promise, then you keep your promise. So there is no question about that. And I think that's why we are also considered being quite reliable and trustworthy and honest. Whereas I think in France you have the situation that you probably have more rules than what we are having, but you also have the discipline is not that strict, and maybe it's more the general idea is, okay, it's a rule, but then we keep on doing as we did before, so we don't need to change. So I think that might be one of the quite big differences, in fact. Then I still want to do some promotion for Finland. You have, of course, heard that we have the best educational system, schooling system in Finland. You probably also have heard that we recently have been chosen as the most happiest nation in the world. To be honest, I really don't know how they have been calculating these, where the scores do come, but that's what the results are showing. So I have my doubts of that. However, what I know is that we have the best strawberries in the world, absolutely the most tastiest one. We have the most beautiful archipelago, and we also have the amazing white nights in July. So I want to welcome you all to Finland to experience this. And just as a summary, I would say, vive la différence.